Hello, and you are listening to The Book Was Better, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
And I'm Jacinta.
And today we're talking about George of the Jungle.
Put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
George of the Jungle, friend of you and me, Jacinta. Our friend George.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Like Brendan-Fraser-George with the sweet abs and the oily brown skin.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get there. But you know the origins of George of the Jungle, right? Because a lot of people I've spoken to when I've said, hey guys, like when I've been pressing people at a dinner party or whatever,
okay.
There's me, cognac in one hand, cigar in the other, and they go, what are you doing this weekend, Luke? And I go, well, fellas, I'm reading George of the Jungle. And a lot of people go, oh yeah, like that Tarzan thing. That's a Tarzan ripoff. And they think that it was just like that the movie is the thing. But the movie is an adaptation of a 60s cartoon, which is a Tarzan ripoff.
Yeah.
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 You knew that?
So I mean they're correct in
the
the long run.
In the long run.
But they weren't aware that they were correct.
We're all correct in the long run. Oh, I mean, we're all dead in the long run. So yeah, it's a J. Ward cartoon from the 60s. George, everybody in this film is woefully miscast. George is really big, meaty, muscular, like huge dude with like a black pompadour. And the lady, what's the lady? Ursula? She is like a sexy redhead in it. In this one, she's Leslie Mann. Instead.
Yeah, okay.
Who's nice. I like Leslie Mann, but everybody's just, it's all just a little bit off kilter. It's one of those things, like, I don't know why it needs to be here. Brendan Fraser, George, he was also Dudley Do-Right, which is another J. Ward cartoon, I believe. Two characters, same universe, incredibly confusing. We're going to try and unravel it as we go. We're going to read this
unravel
thing.
it like a sweaty loincloth.
Yeah, exactly. Now, look, you've been very, very overworked on our pop culture empire this weekend.
So much so that I forgot that I was doing this.
Yeah, so this is one of those things where I've read it. I've revisited the movie.
Okay.
And if you're unclear on this, you haven't had a chance to catch up on all this stuff, doesn't matter, because I'm going to talk you through it.
Fantastic.
You're going to figure it out as we go and get your opinions. You've seen this film, though. Did you see it at a young age?
I did. I have not seen it in a very long time. So beyond the general appearance of Brendan Fraser in this movie, I don't really remember anything that happens.
It's 1997.
Yeah.
Was it?
So I would have been 11?
Okay.
12?
I was going to ask you if it was a one-handed watch. I won't now.
No, that's gross.
And this book as well, because we always, when possible, have the original book, has this beautiful fluoro orange sticker from an actual bookshop, I assume, that says that it is 25 cents. So...
And it does have a picture of George spread eagle over what I assume is meant to look like the trunk of a tree, but it really looks like something that perhaps Christian Grey would be very interested in.
He really looks like he's found a knot hole. And
or he's presenting. Like, either way, there's definitely something more going on to this.
I thought he might be giving it the old woodpecker treatment. Banging away at that thing. Knock, knock, who's there? Brendan Fraser's dick. And this book is by Beth Nadler. Now, she's only done a couple of things, including this one. There was the author of the junior and senior novelization of the film Jack. Do you remember Jack?
Oh, vaguely.
It was our friend Robin Williams,
Yes.
and he plays a kid who's like actually looks like a big hairy man.
Okay, yeah, yes.
I don't think he was like a big hairy man that acted like a kid, which is like, 95% of the internet right now. But I think he was actually a kid that had this genetic dysfunction that made him a big hairy man.
Okay, so it wasn't like the Tom Hanks film Big,
No.
where it was a small child was
magically made
yeah,
big.
Yeah, okay.
Or
okay.
what was that one, like Suddenly 30 or something, where
a
little girl turned into like a rock-jawed man?
No, it was what's her name? It was Ben Affleck's former wife.
Oh,
Wasn't it her? Jennifer Garner? Wasn't it her?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that the one?
That's the Rockjaw Man I was thinking of.
What the fuck?
And she also wrote, Beth Nadler, not Jennifer Garner, wrote The Magic School Bus Inside Ralphie, a book about germs.
Well, I bet there's lots of germs in Ralphie's colon.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's why they had to put the magic school bus inside.
Like, how big's his colon that he can fit a magic school bus inside?
Well, it is a magic school bus. Kind of probably operates on TARDIS / it turns out Ralphie's bigger on the inside as well, to be fair. And riddled with AIDS. Quite a sad book, that one. So, let's read the beginning of this particular story. Normally, what happens when we read this beginning is that we swap lines.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you do this because I've got some colour commentary to insert.
All right. Insert your colour.
I will.
Okay.
The prologue.
Okay.
Here we go.
The sun was like a yellow ball of fire suspended high in the African sky.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. So, can we just pause to acknowledge that the sun was like a yellow ball of fire is the shittiest / laziest simile ever?
Because I would argue that it actually is a yellow ball of fire in the sky.
I would support that argument. I'm on your team.
There were thick green leaves growing in every imaginable direction.
Now, are we sure about this? Because I can imagine a lot of directions, lady. All sorts of things, all sorts of places these things can be sprouting out of.
It's very vague because, you know, the imagination is just, it's infinite, isn't it?
Don't tell me how to imagine when I'm reading your book.
Yeah.
Basically. Don't suggest that you've got a greater imagination than I have when you've just said that the sun was like a ball of yellow fire. Basically.
The sparkling clear streams ran throughout the land, creating what looked like a well-thought-out and intricate pattern from above.
So she's clearly pro-intelligent design. That's a alarm bell.
Exotic animals grazed on the lush open fields of grass, and birds sang sweet songs that filled the air. The Bukuva jungle was a place of great beauty, but no man had ever set foot on its soil until the crash.
So yeah, basically, what we discover is that a plane has crashed into and destroyed part of this beautiful, untouched jungle.
Oh, I thought they were talking about, like, the Wall Street crash.
Well, that it had a butterfly effect.
Okay. Yep.
Caused this plane to crash. A stockbroker was checking his stocks on his cell phone while flying the plane.
Yep.
It crashes. A human baby called George is found in the wreckage and raised by apes. So, beautiful, a bit of untouched jungle. No one's ever done anything to it. And then a fucking plane destroys it. Proof that, once again, Americans ruin everything.
Maybe the pilot was just eating a burger and he dropped mustard onto the control panel and it fried it and that's why it crashed.
He fried it, and then instead of getting the extinguisher, he quickly cut up some potatoes and threw them on top. Not cool. Now look, the cartoon, the thing about it, Rocky and Bullwinkle was kind of the same, but particularly George of the Jungle, is that original cartoon has a lot of narration. By a fourth wall breaking narrator who like also talks to the characters, talks to us, gets in arguments with the characters. And the film actually does the same, which probably feels kind of weird and cheesy if you didn't know it was based on the cartoon. But the narrator in the film does argue with characters and tell us all sorts of things. He's got the deep narrator voice. So this is a book. This is an adaptation. By nature, this book is told by an omniscient narrator.
Yes.
And the book does not take advantage of that at all. It completely eliminates the idea of a narrator and any of those interactions that happen. It just skips them. Like, why would you not write the whole book as the narrator? That's your perfect chance to do that duck-amuck kind of fucking with the characters, telling the story. Am I a reliable narrator? Am I an unreliable narrator? Did I leave the milk out? Ooh, who knows? You know what I mean? So...
Well, it's probably because they got handed a whole bunch of money and said, write this book in a weekend, and they just went, sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, apart from the whole bunch of money.
Well, I mean, a whole bunch is just like...
A handful.
How many dollars can you hold in one fist?
7.
So that's $7.
$7.
Yeah.
And it's also 25 cents. That's a bargain. This is the real beginning. Chapter 1, : It's a jungle out there. with this one. Why don't we do this one line by line?
Okay.
Many years later, 27 to be exact, the Bakuva jungle was still a mystery to most people.
But finally, a courageous group of people decided to cross the dangerous Congo River and make their way through mosquito-infested swamps, all while travelling under the scorching heat of the African sun.
The group had made it to the outskirts of the Bakuva, and the porters began to set up camp there.
Ursula Stanhope was the only female in the group.
She stood in front of an enormous tree, her long blonde hair blowing in the warm breeze, and a wide smile stretched across her face. Certified hot Ursula Stanhope. She's a dreamboat.
Because she's got blonde hair and a wide smile across her wide face.
Yeah. Smiling's contagious. She's smiling, we're smiling, long blonde hair flowing. She sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, banyan tree. Right. And look what's in it, she said, pointing to a branch of the tree. Spider monkeys. 2 adorable spider monkeys. Could you just die?
Also certified dummy. And also 2 adorable spider monkeys. Are we sure this isn't the origin of the Olsen twins?
I think it's a little bit late.
When they were discovered.
1997?
Hugging in a tree. Someone caught them in a net, dragged them to San Francisco. Everywhere you look, there's a spider monkey to hang on to. But Ursula clearly has far bigger problems than these spider monkeys.
Ursula panned the camera past a very tall and handsome man applying sunblock to his face. And this is Lyle Vandergroot, continued Ursula. And she did a triple take. Oh my gosh, Lyle, what are you doing here? She asked with a look on her face that lay somewhere between surprise and horror.
We'll give the audience, the listeners, a second to say I am Groot to themselves, amuse themselves there. Lyle is her fiancé, played by Thomas Hayden Church.
Oh, okay.
The Sandman.
Yeah, right.
Ned from Ned and Stacey. Yeah. He's a cool guy. I like him. Very
too.
dry, very funny. Not doing much here. He's her fiancé. He's not supposed to be here, but he has tracked her across the world in order to surprise her, which is basically the same shit that John Arbuckle pulled in Garfield 2 the other week, now that I think of that.
Oh, yeah.
So a bit of a trope. Mm-hmm. And her rich mother, Ursula's rich mother, rich people, oh my God, she sent Lyle because she thinks that Ursula has pretty much gone nuts to be heading off into the jungle here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous to think that women can have independent thought.
Would even
and just,
be curious about
the world.
They've got so much to occupy them in the home.
Yeah, exactly.
Washing, cooking. Exactly,
like the oven's not going to clean itself.
No, that's right. Especially not when you're fighting around with spider monkeys in Africa, lady. Speaking of men being total shits, Lyle is total shit.
What's the point of marrying the most desirable woman in all of San Francisco if you don't invite everybody you hate to rub their noses in it? Lyle asked with a smirk on his face.
He's talking about her vagina?
Maybe.
What's the point of being with this beautiful woman if you can't all rub your nose in her? And the guide, whose name's Kwame. Is he Kwame? Is he the one with the heart in Captain Planet?
No, Kwame's Earth.
Who's the one with the heart?
Mati.
Adorable.
Heart. Doesn't he have a spider monkey? No, he's got a capuchin.
Hey, settle. Pooching you in a minute. Kwame hooks Ursula with this legend of the white ape. People say the white ape is over 7 feet tall with the strength of a lion, interjected Kwame with a serious look on his face. When the moon is full, he wanders alone through the jungle, piercing the silence of the night with his call. Some say he is thirsty for blood. Others say he is hungry for flesh. Yet others say he is just calling for the mate he longs for but will never find.
Wow, said Ursula, her mouth hanging wide open in invitation.
What we're about to discover here is this is essentially a story about people who have absolutely nothing in common with each other apart from the fact that they are incredibly horny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on board. Okay.
Yeah, she got the jungle fever right here. Not the offensive jungle fever. This is actual, real, bona fide, original jungle fever.
Yeah.
We can also, speaking of a racist, add racist to Lyle's charms. He believes that the African porters are just having a chat in their own language, in their own country.
Yep.
He thinks they might be trying to put some kind of curse on him.
Oh.
The rest of the movie from this point does feel a little cursed.
Well, yeah.
They did a sequel, though. Did you know that? Not with Brendan-Fraser,
No.
though. I think it was someone else.
Oh, right.
I think
had no
that's
idea.
fine to replace your actor, but then you do have to do the TOO instead of the number 2. Yeah.
Yeah, like look who's talking to.
No, because that was like look who's talking as
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was like in addition to. Whereas like Justin Bateman in Teen Wolf 2,
Yeah.
TOO, was like, this shit's happening to this guy as well.
Okay, all right.
And the other one, Splash 2. No Tom Hanks.
Definitely no Colin Hanks.
No, he wasn't even born yet.
No.
He might have been conceived
Never
with a
know.
mermaid.
Maybe he was just a little swimmer in his dad's little...
Testicles.
I was trying to find some sort of aquatic simile, but I just
okay.
couldn't get there.
Maybe Benedict Cumberbatch's father is a sailor who had a run-in with a mermaid.
Well, yeah, I imagine that. Well, I don't know.
Or at least a manatee.
Well, yeah, definitely. I do feel like his people, whether his father is actually human or whatnot, I do feel like they would produce like frogs.
Yes.
You know, where the eggs would be laid.
Yeah.
And then the male would come and ejaculate over the eggs.
I heard
And that's how his species would produce, yeah.
Cumberbatch was 6 years old before he grew legs
Yeah, right.
and his tail dropped off.
There you go.
I know.
Interesting.
Quite frightening.
Yeah.
I just wish, forget about him coming backstage and saying, don't film me and stuff like that. Put him in a tank of water,
Yeah.
lock it up,
Yep.
and then we'll know the truth. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Put him in there. Let's find out. Okay. Ursula is then suddenly confronted by a lion. And Lyle runs away like an absolute coward. It's a reverse Wizard of Oz situation. And that might sound exciting, but it's actually written a little bit like this.
She was frozen in front of the ferocious feline. Lyle! Lion! Iron! She said in fear. For the first time, Lyle noticed the hungry-looking lion. He was terrified.
Really ratcheting up that tension.
Wow.
Aren't we? Lion. Must have been a ghost lion. Although, speaking of tension, there is definitely a little sexual tension. Even here.
Her back was up against the tree, and the lion now stood very close to her. Ursula could feel its hot breath on her leg.
It began to trace the alphabet with its tongue.
It didn't even know the alphabet.
Sexy lion. But then she is cock-blocked by a young man stood on a thick branch staring down at them. It was George. He swung through the air from vine to vine, looking like a real-life Tarzan. George swooped down on the lion, but he misjudged his angle. He swung headfirst into a giant banyan tree. "Oh, that hurt," said George, rubbing his head probably, and sliding down the trunk of the tree. He landed on the big cat and wrestled it to the ground. Here we go, Mr. Brendan-Fraser himself. I got a question, what will he not do? What would it take for this guy to turn down a role? I can imagine it being like, Mr. Fraser, we'd like you to play the villain in a Smurfs and Snorks meet blackface hip-hop child molester Hitler, and we'll pay you a piece of chicken. And not guaranteeing a breast either.
Okay.
It could be a thigh, could be a wing. He's like, give me the sequel too. I'll sign up. I'll do a trilogy.
Are we talking late 90s Brendan Fraser or Brendan Fraser now? Because I feel like Brendan Fraser now has had a great deal of access to chicken.
Well, I think, didn't he always just do... I mean, he's in Looney Tunes back in action. He did Dudley Do-Rider in this. Yeah. And you would think that someone would go, you know what, I was Encino Man. I kind of played like a monkey man before. I don't want to be typecast as the monkey man.
Oh, maybe he just wants to do what he knows.
He's like swing around the place. George not even trying hard, he said to Ursula with a big grin on his face. Never have truer words been spoken than that. That's for sure. George, of course, is the white ape that everyone's been talking about.
Oh, what an interesting coincidence.
You wouldn't pick that. See,
No, of
there's
course
twist,
not.
that's story here. And then, just like in the cartoon, like the theme song,
Swinging on a vine, he managed to grab Ursula and carry her in his arms. Ursula held onto George for dear life. "Watch out for that tree," she shouted as they swung straight towards a huge one. Ursula's words came too late. Thwack! They rammed right into the tree.
the end. A very sad, short romance. So, thank you, everybody, for listening. Please listen to our... No, unfortunately, George instead takes her to his treehouse. Now, here's an interesting description.
The house was built out of wood, airplane parts, bamboo, and parachute silk and a huge banyan tree.
Yeah, so why not decorate your home with the vehicle that killed your parents? You know, the bathrooms, just through there. The toilet did break in the crash, but do feel free to shit in my father's skull.
And now they're suggesting that parachutes have survived for 30 years. Nearly 30 years.
That's not how parachutes work.
No. They understand how, like, biodegradable, like, fabrics work, right?
That's Parachutes 101. You learn that in the first day of parachute school. Christ.
Oh, dear.
What do you think happened to all those parachute pants from the 80s?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were very flammable. They probably all burnt.
New character here. This is a character that John Cleese probably very literally phoned in.
Then Ursula saw a 300-pound, 7-foot-tall ape wearing an apron and glasses. This was George's lifelong companion, his best friend, Ape.
Yep, John Cleese doing the voice there, not wearing the suit. He would have been at home in his bed, probably, while he recorded this. I am beginning to wonder about Ursula's credentials and suitability for this task.
Whoa, hilarious! I thought the monkey just talked. She wiped a tear of laughter from her eye.
She's there to see an ape.
Yep.
This is an ape. Mm-hmm. His name is Ape.
Yes.
She thinks it's a monkey.
Yeah. Because they are different things.
No tail.
Correct.
That's what I do.
Lack of prehensile tail.
Ever in doubt, turn him around, turn him upside down, flip him over, have a look, study. It's above the hole there. If there's a tail, it's a monkey. No tail, you got yourself an ape, fella.
You do indeed.
And so it begins.
George not feel like ruling jungle today. George feels strange, he said, holding his belly. Got feeling of butterflies in stomach, but George not eat any butterflies. Ape smiled. George, you're exhibiting the classic symptoms of a man in the clutches of romantic desire.
George banana hard like tree trunk and reach skyward. George coconut swollen with milk. Poor George. This must be a very confusing, confronting time for him.
Well, I mean, we're assuming here that he has only ever been attracted to female, like human women. Like, he's been raised in an ape society.
I'm glad you mentioned that because good thing she's same species, said George, relieved. Tell me how make her my mate, ape.
Ah,
so he's onto
there
it
you
already.
Go. So he understands.
He's not
there are differences.
there to hold hands.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I'm gonna get my fuck on.
Yeah, right.
Because he's never seen one. This might be his only chance.
Yeah.
He's got to propagate his species.
He does.
So Lyle has been searching for Ursula with his two henchmen who are called Thor and Max. Now, they have featured quite prominently prior to this, but I've largely ignored them because they say stuff like this.
You know what else I got? Thor asked, tugging on the back of his pants. A wicked wedgie, and it's driving me crazy.
Would you get your mind off your knickers? Max pleaded. Got my mind on my knickers and my knickers on my mind.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll see a lot more of these two. Meanwhile, though...
Ursula was beginning to wake up. She stretched her arms above her head and let out a big yawn, then sat up and opened her eyes. Her clothing had been washed and dried and was folded neatly in a pile right next to her bed.
George learned all his moves from watching The Cosby Show, clearly.
Yes, he slipped a little jungle roofie into her coconut milk.
Yeah, that happens a lot in movies where like women wake up in strange places and either their clothes are all sort of folded up next to them, and usually they go, they're not so worried about that, but they go, did we? And the person goes, oh no.
No, I just completely undressed you naked and tucked you in.
Give it a couple more scenes. They're in the sewer and they got a turtle looking at him in their face. As well. What if you combine both of those things? Like she wakes up in a sewer with her clothes in a neat pile next to her, and there's a turtle going, "Cowabunga, dude."
Yeah, and he goes, "Did we?" And he goes, "Fuck yes, we did."
Fuck yeah. Gave you some hell from Michelle. Then the whole ape-monkey difference. Got to admit, it seems kind of trivial when the elephant came to a screeching halt right in front of George. His tongue hung out of his mouth and he panted and waved his little elephant tail back and forth. "Good boy, good Shep." That's your dog?" Ursula asked George. "Sure is. This Shep. He my big grey peanut-loving faithful Poochie," George said, beaming with pride. Can we take a little moment to imagine just the sinking feeling in Brendan Fraser's stomach when he first read that line? Like, here's the script. You've signed the contract. He's looking at peanut-loving faithful Poochie. And it's like, yep, that's... you're not just going to say that. We're going to record it for all time.
I hope the script, like, there was little green dollar signs underneath that line. Just
Think of the money.
Yeah, it's just like that scene in The Simpsons, the do it for her, where he covers up the thing. It's just like, you just need to remind yourself why you're here. Dollar bills.
Dollar bills, yo. Ursula turns out to be totally fucking useless.
I think we were getting that impression.
Yeah, she sinks in the quicksand, so she has to be rescued by George a second time. She's so fucking useless, in fact. They totally give up the search for Lyle, which was what they were doing, and just go back to the treehouse.
Then Ursula looked straight into George's eyes and said, "Thank you, George, for this wonderful adventure. It's what I've always wanted." George looked into Ursula's eyes and thought, "George have stirring of special feelings again."
George trunk spray like fountain. George boa constricting.
This is weird. This is getting a bit weird.
Oh, it's going to get weirder.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
while all these hormones are happening, Ape decides this is time to give George some love tips.
Ask her, why does a beautiful woman have to think so much on a lovely night like this?
Now, this is a setup because George, being the fucking idiot inbred monkey man that he is, says, "Why does beautiful woman have to stink so much on a lovely night like this?" And risks unintentionally causing offence.
Oh dear.
I would say the original line, "Why do you have to think so much on a night like this?" is kind of offensive anyway.
Yeah.
Something to ponder. It was 97. And this also made me just think, like, seriously, how hard exactly is it to write a children's movie?
Lyle pushed and shoved his way up to the head of the line while the others stared at him. He was almost at the front when he tripped over a log and landed face down in a humongous pile of elephant poop.
There we go. Thomas Hayden Church, hilariously covered in shit. Very, very simple. In fact, we saw an actual hilarious covered in shit scene today.
We did. Yes.
So, I've seen people write hilarious covered in shit scenes.
And, the Back to the Future
Yeah.
is a great example of how to well do a scene where a character is covered in shit.
And just for clarification, I was referring to Vacation, not that German thing we watched.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, right.
So, George is teaching Ursula how to handle a vine. Wow. When Lyle finally catches up with them.
Lyle saw George running in his direction and thought he was after him. Lyle pulled out his tiny pistol and aimed it at George. He pulled the trigger and George fell down at once. The king of the jungle lay motionless on the ground. "George!" Ursula screamed at the top of her lungs. She ran over to him and rested her head upon his chest.
The end. Thank you very much for listening. So, I've got to ask... if only. No, but look, this is what freaks me out in this film. Like, Lyle is then jailed in Africa for attempted murder.
Right.
Though we never see the police arrive or anything in this uncharted bit of jungle that no one's ever been to before.
Yeah.
Somehow he ends up there, and Ursula takes George home to San Francisco on a private jet in order to get him medical treatment, because she's like, if I take you back to America... with your head injury, because you were shot in the head, I will be able to get you the best medical treatment possible.
Yeah.
So off they go. Although, as they sort of leave the airport and head to what turns out to be her apartment, George seems kind of fine to me.
I don't even know how to say this. screamed George at that moment. He was sticking his head up through the sunroof, letting everyone in San Francisco know that he had arrived.
And in fact, what she does is she just gets the family doctor to come around to the apartment and check him out.
Right.
While he's laying on the couch.
Okay.
He puts a bandage above his ear, basically, and goes, "You're fine. You'll be cool."
Yeah, and if what I've learned about the American medical system is correct, that would have cost her $20,000.
Yes, at least. She's kind of rich, though. Here is a loaded question.
What do you think of my jungle, George? Asked Ursula as the two of them stood looking out over the city.
Tight, but could use a trim, perhaps. I don't know. And George just is finding it very difficult to sleep in this animal-less city. But then, fuck is this?
What he saw was a pudgy little baby sloth making its way up the side of the building and onto the balcony. Then the poor thing, out of breath, flopped down on the floor. George just looked at it and said, "Sure, now you come." "Listen, this better be good," answered the tired animal in sloth language. The fuck?
I'm just going to take their word for it. I don't want to overthink it. I kind of just want to keep moving.
Earth.
In San Francisco, yeah.
Why is there just wild sloths in San Francisco?
I don't know. I don't remember. Of course, as I said, Full House is my main knowledge of San Francisco. Actually, I haven't been to San Francisco.
Okay.
So that's probably where most of my knowledge comes from. But yeah. How about this, though? Next morning, George kind of makes an impression to Ursula's friend Betsy.
He's under the waterfall. Oh, I mean, he's in the shower, Ursula answered. "Not anymore," said Betsy, giggling. She saw George standing behind Ursula. He was naked and dripping wet.
Betsy stared at George's thick vine with its hanging fruit and wondered how Ursula could still walk after the wild monkey sex, which had obviously occurred just moments before.
George wasn't the only one dripping wet in that room.
You know, I tell you, they make quite a big deal about this as well in the film.
Okay.
He's just wandering around that room naked, and they're all, and she goes and helps him get dressed and stuff, and you know, here, wear my stretchy sweatpants and stuff, and he's just like, knocking over lamps and stuff with his cock. And also, just as a side note, no hamburgers here.
Okay.
But now they're back in America. Instead of all these like fruits and coconut salsas and things they were having before, coffee and a donut.
Okay.
Donut, breakfast of champions.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a donut for breakfast. Ever.
Not wise.
No.
And Betsy now decides, you know what? I don't know if I want to marry a would-be murderer Lyle, who is currently rotting in an African jail. But she's thinking, I wouldn't mind hooking up with the wild, naked jungle man who is as dumb as a post. And you think, well, fuck it. Like, can you blame her?
Absolutely not.
Like, why not? Why not just go for it? And then and she doesn't want to tell her parents, though, or call off the engagement party, which is happening tomorrow. So she kind of wants to have a cake.
And eat it too.
Yeah, I spoiled it for but that's where I was going.
Okay.
Because we all like cake.
We do like cake.
And she wants to have a cake. And eat it too.
He is as delicious as a cake, if the description is as true to form.
Well, what do you think of this description?
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I was just reading a little bit ahead. George took a hold of Betsy's hand and stuck his tongue out and proceeded to lick it. Betsy was surprised, but knew George meant well. She flashed him a broad smile.
Mr. Grey could learn some moves from this guy.
And it wasn't a broad smile on her face.
Yes.
It
very
was
great
somewhere else.
muscle control. Seriously, if Ursula, Betsy, and George don't all end up in bed together by the end of this day, I am going to be amazed because something is brewing in Betsy's pants. Now, George, we cut to George. They got to get him some clothes.
Oh, of course.
So he's in his leopard underwear, but she's taken him to an expensive suit store where he's now taunting a small dog.
Coco looked around the store from up on top of the wallet mountain he was standing on. He spotted George hiding behind a clothing rack, holding a piece of cheese in his hand.
Now here's my question. He was just wearing his underwear. Where did he produce a piece of cheese from?
You know where.
And there's the downside of living with a jungle man. He might be buff. He might have like big muscles from swinging on vines and fighting lions and stuff. Not so good with the hygiene though. Yeah. And you know, what's worse is that Ursula's rich mother, whose name is Beatrice, now, she's a piece of work, let me tell you. She's got some strong opinions about all of this. She saw the whole thing. She was in the store. Coco was, in fact, her dog.
Okay. Coco sat next to Beatrice and was lapping up scraps of filet mignon that were being fed to him. Beatrice spotted Ursula and George walking down the street. "I knew it," she said to Coco. "I knew something was up with Ursula and that naked man."
Yeah. Something up indeed. Naked man's all up in Ursula, no doubt.
Yeah, right.
So,
I hope she makes him wash a little bit, though.
Well, yeah.
You know.
This is our conflict. This is, what's... At least, you know, she might get some crackers otherwise. Something like that, yeah. Late photo section. It arrives quite late in the book. Yes, we are actually nearly finished with this story already because it's not a particularly big one. Yeah, just pictures of Brendan Fraser with his fancy hair. I don't know, do any of these stir feelings?
Oh, look how cute he was.
Well, look, he's doing all these things which aren't in the book here. Like, George and Coco zoom around the department store in their battery-powered miniature car. It's not in the book. George is a little confused about how to ride a San Francisco cable car. He's sitting on the roof. Also not in the book. The jungle is not so different from George's jungle. Not in the book. Oh, and you just look at that picture, which is important later.
Okay.
And then, of course, the final two pictures completely spoil the end of the story. So...
Oh, dear.
It's a leave early if you wish point there. Now... Ursula, she heads off to sort out her engagement, and George is supposed to stay home and watch TV. But instead, he goes out on a solo San Francisco adventure.
George danced to bongo drums in an African dance class. He found a marble fountain where he sat for a while. The fountain made him think of his favourite waterfall back home in the jungle. George even managed to get himself into a Calvin Klein photo shoot.
Talk about burying the lead. You spent twice as long, like 3 times as long, talking about the pondering the fountain. Oh, and he just happened to be in a Calvin Klein shoot as well?
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that, though. We just need to mention the brand and then move on.
Yeah. Okay, so look. Bullshit. George, he saves a guy, a painter, who was painting the, Golden Gate Bridge or something, and then he falls off and George saves him, and then the TV crew come and Ursula turns up and he hugs Ursula and picks fleas off her or whatever, and the mother sees it on TV.
No.
And she's like, "I don't want my Ursula, my little... I want more fucking Ursula hanging out with this wrecking monkey man.
She'll get fucking nits and shit, eh?
Oh, you'll be throwing her faces all around and having bubblegum cigars and getting on a little bike and stuff. Nah, we're a respectable family." And then Max and Thor, they stop thinking about their knickers long enough to capture 8 in the jungle. So, George's bird friend, Tookie, he has to fly from Africa to California, and boy, his arm's tired, in order to tell George all about it. So he heads off to do that.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Beatrice's mother lays down the law to her errant child.
As far as I'm concerned, you caught one of those rare jungle viruses that gets nice girls all confused. Now, if Lyle ever survives that jail he's in, the two of you will have to kiss and make up. As for tonight, we will all just have to hold our heads high and carry on.
Yep, so mother, foolish girl child, marry the murderer in the jail.
Yeah.
So that our family...
Forget your jungle fever.
So that our family keeps their status and good name.
Yeah,
and then she has a
absolutely.
quiet word with George. George, can I have a word with you? Why don't you fuck off, George? Why don't you fuck off back to Africa, wherever the fuck you're from, you dirty monkey man? Stop eating our hors d'oeuvres. Take your grotty cheese with you, you prick. I wouldn't put it on my cracker for all the bloody coins in the fountain. Whatever that means. Because we were talking about fountains before. Just call back. That's what we do. Now remember, this is a super expensive party hosted by San Francisco's elite. So what do you think they're eating?
Fucking hell. Ursula gagged on the cheese puff she was eating and felt her face break out in a sweat.
Break out in acne. You are all class, America.
Oh, I can't deal with any mention of cheese from now on.
Cheese puffs. Yeah, these were George's cheese puffs. These are fantastic, George. When did you have time to make them? Well, the 27 years I was in the jungle, pretty much. All for one and all for skin. And then Lyle rocks up. He's escaped or he's been freed or some shit's
corrupt
happened.
African prisons. He's paid his way out.
He dug a tunnel to California.
Sure.
Something like that. This was a very different looking Lyle than the one she left in Africa. He wore a patch over his left eye. He had a shaved head and there was a long pink scar which ran down from his scalp to his chin. Besides all that, he had a deranged, crazy look in his eye. I kind of like this Lyle. I think this is a Lyle that we can get behind. And he punches the shit out of George. He's like, eek, fucker George! Punches him in the gut. Oh, me guts, mate! George doubles over. Ursula starts crying, and George just runs away like a total puss.
Isn't this the guy that was like wrestling a lion at the start of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, this same guy ran away from the lion, but now this guy's toughened up.
He's got an eye patch. I have heard that George does have a phobia to do with eye patches. I think the pilot on the plane had an eye patch, and he has bad memories associated with that.
Yeah. And that's a good way to get punched in the breadbasket.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Then George's bird arrives.
Yes.
George's bird arrives and says, look, your friend Ape, he's been kidnapped. Ape-napped, I think they say.
Yep.
So then there's this conundrum. A conundrum for the writer, a conundrum for the screenwriters. It's like, how do we get the penniless George to Africa, but we've only got room for 4 sentences?
Okay.
So here he is. He's in California, doesn't have a job, doesn't have any money. Africa's really far, far away, but this isn't a big book.
That's right.
So the challenge is, someone sat down and gone, Beth Nadler, you're the one, if anyone can do this, 4 sentences, California to Africa, go.
Okay, let's see how we go. But George had an ingenious idea. He would mail himself to Africa. George arrived in Africa in an overnight express mail truck. He pried open the lid to the box he was in and stretched.
It's kind of like hearing someone recant a really boring dream, isn't it? And then this happened, and then I was in Africa.
Yeah, it's like I can't imagine that a truck would be a particularly speedy way of going, but sure.
No, not across the sea.
No.
And then Ursula decides, you know what? I really do love George. I'm going to go and find him. And Lyle's like, oh, really? Well, I'm going to go and follow you. And then in Africa, George wants to save Ape from becoming the star of a Vegas show, because that's the plan that they've got.
Okay.
And then the author finally allows herself to revel in the ridiculousness of all of this.
While George was making his way across deserts, rivers and jungles in hopes of saving Ape from having to perform night after night to audiences who would never understand his wry sense of humour, Max and Thor struggled to carry Ape down a mountain.
It's like a little cry for help right in the middle of this. Just this little surrender flag that just sort of pops up amongst all this dry prose. So, fucking George, he gets caught in a net and he signals all the other apes to attack the 2 poachers. Now, why the bird couldn't have saved himself an overseas trip and just signaled the other apes to attack the poachers himself instead of George, I don't know. And in fact, George is so useless here that Ursula swings in to save George.
Oh, lucky that George gave her violin lessons.
Sisters, doing it for themselves, standing on her own 2 feet, which are hanging from a vine.
Yeah.
And then just when Ursula and George are finally going to get their fuck on, after all this time,
his balls are so blue.
There's steam coming out of her. it's like a valve on an old train. Just spraying out. And then Lyle turns up again. He kidnaps Ursula, which means George has to save her again. And they're floating down the river. It's a big chase. They're floating down the river on lily pads. And then, I don't know, like, I've got to admit, if this happened in the film, I didn't pay attention to this part.
Okay.
Because I think I would have remembered this. Surrounding the water was evidently their in-place to shop or just hang out if you were living on Ape Mountain. Ursula, Lyle, and George landed smack dab in the middle of the Ape Mountain Mall. What a sight it was. It looked like something out of a movie called Planet of the Apes meets Disneyland. The The mall was packed with dozens of ape families. Purple, pink, green, and blue neon lights glowed as they lit up the store windows. There was a banana smoothie shop with a long line of apes in it, and even a 10-screen movie theatre.
What?
No! Fuck off. That is too much. You had me and then you took it too far.
That's crazy.
You stretched. This is a movie, a book that started with the sun is like a yellow ball of fire, and now saying that I didn't have an imagination, now saying that there's bloody 8 movie theatres.
And saying that a community of animals who have never experienced the human touch and know nothing of human society or culture, that they have just decided that they want a mall and a movie theatre. What kind of cinema culture do they have? Do they have their own... Are they making their own movies? Are they importing movies? Is it like Bollywood, where they kind of take existing movies and then just apeify it?
Spider Ape.
Yeah, right.
X-Apes.
Fantastic Apes.
Schindler's Apes. And then George ends up defeating Lyle. He basically swings in and takes Ursula away from him. And Ursula is replaced with a large female ape. The implication being that Lyle was subsequently ape-raped.
Oh.
To death.
Oh.
I know, very sad. But don't worry, the final chapter, this is the ending, is called Happily Ever After. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
George's best friend in the world, Ape, was confident that George would be happy and well taken care of by his new wife, because George marries Ursula.
So Ape took the opportunity to follow his true calling and pursue his music career.
Ape ended up making a huge success out of himself in none other than Las Vegas.
He wrote a musical called George of the Jungle, which he starred in and received rave reviews.
And as for Max and Thor, well, they needed jobs when they finally made it out of Africa.
So Ape, being a good primate, hired them to perform in his Vegas act.
Max and Thor each played a tree.
They wore costumes that weighed 20 pounds and they stood around while actors dressed in George and Ursula swung into them time and time again.
With erections. And that, my friends, is the amazing George of the Jungle.
Wow. I mean, there wasn't really many descriptions of his sweet abs, but there was a whole bunch of dick cheese, so I suppose...
Yeah, get what you can take.
But yes,
yeah.
Yes, that was the aim of that was the whole message of the movie too.
You get what you can take. Yeah, you get what you take. That's what I got out of it. He had so much cheese in his dick. There was a toothpick with an olive on the end of it.
It was, man.
Yeah. I gotta ask, was the book better?
I don't feel that the book was better.
Oh, I'm going to side with the book because I don't remember that 8 Mall. Maybe I have to rewatch it.
Well, yeah.
But there you go. And there wasn't much on Goodreads or Amazon.
Okay.
But I did like this little one. The book was good for what it was, an adaptation of a movie script aimed at kids. However, it was clearly adapted from an early version of the script, written before the movie was fully cast. Much of the storyline does not conform to the movie, and there are several major incongruities, such as a character played by Thomas Hayden Church declaring himself to be the tallest man in a group which contains Abraham Ben Ruby and Greg Crotwell. Overall, it's a cute little book, but, and I never thought I'd say this, I'd rather watch the movie.
Oh.
He's a guy.
Yes, because I'm very familiar with Abraham Ben Ruby and Greg Crutwell, so I do agree with this.
And their heights, their stats.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Notoriously tall men.
Sure, they sure are, yeah.
So here's a guy, I'm assuming it's a guy. This is a guy, right? A woman wouldn't write this review. This is a guy that not only likes George of the Jungle as a film,
yes,
has sought out and bought the novel, read it, and the fact that the publisher just said, look, we'll get an intern to edit it, you've got between now and lunch,
yep,
has decided, I'm going to fact check this.
Okay.
I'm going to look to make sure it all checks out. They said. This is probably before IMDb as well. This is probably somebody...
Oh, God, imagine.
Somebody who has just really gone around measuring B-list, C-list character actors.
Maybe early days of Wikipedia. They've looked them up. They've checked everybody's heights.
And they said, I've got you. I have got you.
Yes.
This does not add up. I mean, the fact that Thomas Hayden Church's character makes spurious, false, self-aggrandizing claims all throughout the story, don't think it's relevant in this case. Because, got it on a technicality. That technicality, ladies and gentlemen, was height in this instance. So...
Well done, detective.
Good work. You win...
a tub of dick cheese.
A small cheese.
Cheese platter.
On a cracker. So... yes. Thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you, Jacinta. This is your second podcast in a row this morning.
It is, yes.
Gosh, our voices...
It's been quite the day.
Quite dry. We have talked quite a bit. Please listen to Fruitless Pursuits Cast, FP Cast. That's the one we recorded a couple of minutes ago. That went live on Monday. Find out everything we're doing at fruitlesspursuits.com, geekvision.tvs and other places. Support us on Patreon if you want special extra bonus episodes for a few measly dollars a month. And measly to you, very much appreciated from us. And, next week there'll be more stuff. I think Brett's coming in next week.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think that we've settled on a book. And running out of time, so I bet to message him tomorrow. Find out what the fuck that's going to be. I've also got a message from Jessica saying, you need to send me some lists of books, dude, now. So I got to do that as well. Or otherwise, my word, there'll be problems. So, yeah. Thanks, dude.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a book.
Says George. You got to say the thing so we can get out. We can't finish the show. I've just got to keep talking until you say the thing.
Okay.
Let's say the thing then.
But don't you start the thing?
You say it.
Fine, we'll catch you on the flips, you motherfuckers.
George Margie. See what I did there?
Oh.
Watch out for that cheese. Dunk.